This is the first time that we're ever doing this live stream. You guys are a live audience, so this is monumental.
Hey, you'll be able to see us?
No, they'll see the backs of your heads. We're live. Oh, all right. So, fifth graders, welcome to this amazing presentation that we are about to have. Thanks to the generosity of the PTO here at Sarah Noble School. They have given us some funds so that we can enjoy our special author visit from Lisa Greenwald. And I know you guys are very familiar with her books. What is the book that is so wildly popular here, we can't even keep it on the shelves? What is it, baby? The TBH books, you got it. And she's written some other books. So let's give Mrs. Greenwald a warm welcome and be a great audience. Thank you guys so much.
I'm super excited to be here. My niece actually went to this school, so I can't do the math, but she is graduating high school, so I don't know when that was, but she did go to this school and she loved it. And I'm in Milford all the time visiting family, so I'm super psyched to be here. I have a feeling you guys are going to have a lot of questions about the TBH books. Am I right? Is that what people want to mostly know about? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a presentation about how I got published and how I started writing. I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions at the end, so don't worry, just keep your question in your head. And when I'm done, I'll answer questions about anything. It could be my favorite ice cream, it could be about my dog, it could be about the TBH books, it could be about anything. Okay? So just remember your questions. Okay, so this is how I always start my presentation, and for a couple reasons. I just think it's a very funny picture because I'm sitting on this old couch. I'm probably about like 4 years old, and I have a stack of books next to me, the Berenstain Bears. Has anyone read Berenstain Bears before, back in the day? And I'm making this face like super annoyed at whoever's taking this picture of me. I don't know if it was my mom or my dad or whoever it was. Like, please don't bother me. I'm clearly busy. I'm reading. I have a stack of books here on the couch next to me. And the reason why I share this with you guys first before anything else, and I have a feeling that you probably all know this, and even from what I've just learned about you guys, is totally a great sign, is that to become a good writer, you have to be a good reader. And I can tell already. Usually I ask kids, like, raise your hand if you like to read, but I have a feeling all the hands would go up, right? Raise your hand if you like to read. Most of the hands. Then I sometimes say, raise your hand if you'd rather, sweep the garage than read. Okay, a couple. That's fine. That's fair. That's fair. Not everyone likes to read, but I also think that that's because you might not have found the right book yet. So don't give up on it yet. But in any case, so much of being a good writer is being a good reader. And a lot of being a good reader is reading outside of your comfort zone. Does everyone know what I mean by that? Like, for me, I love to write realistic fiction, and I love to read realistic fiction, but it's important to also read things I might not really like. Like, I don't love fantasy. I don't love science fiction, but it's important to read and get out of that comfort zone a little bit just to see other kinds of genres and other kinds of writing. So if you love to read, great. If you don't love to read yet, you'll get there. And if you have any little, inkling of an idea that you might want to be a writer one day, reading is a great way to get started. And another good way to get started on writing is to keep a diary, which I'm sharing this very old diary, which is very 80s looking. I don't want you to guess how old I am. And I kept this diary every day for a while. I'll admit that I stopped. I got lazy with it. But today I still keep a journal, which is 5 years on a page. Has anyone seen those? Where you have like a little bit, you have like 5 lines for each year. And then so I'll write every night before bed, just like little things that happen, and it's a good way to sort of keep a record of your day. But if you want to start writing and you don't really know how to start, keeping a journal or a diary is the best way to start. Have anyone here keep a diary, journal? So, and the best thing about it is that you don't need to worry about punctuation, you don't need to worry about spelling. Hopefully no one's reading it, right? No one's sneaking to look at your diary. And you can write about anything that's on your mind, and all the emotions come through. Has anyone heard the expression, write what you know? So a lot of people will say, if you want to write a book, write what you know, write what's in your heart, write what you're passionate about. And so if you start with a journal and you start with a diary, that's going to be your innermost thoughts, what you're scared of, what you're worried about, what's something awesome that happened, something terrible that happened, all those things. You don't have to worry about it being perfect. all the emotions will come through. So I'm going to share this page from my diary, which is so embarrassing, but I like to share it because it really takes me back to that moment. Like, I'm writing about this fight I had with my friend Kelly. I had a crush on this boy, Dan, who actually inspired a character in My Life in Pink and Green. Has anyone read My Life in Pink and Green? It's old at this point, but it's my first book. You read it? So there's a character named Evan Mass in My Life in Pink and Green, and it's inspired by this boy, Dan, who I had a crush on. So I'm writing in this diary, and I look back at this, and I'm totally back in that moment. And people ask me sometimes, how do you write, like, from the perspective of a middle schooler? How do you get into that mindset? And one, I sort of still feel like I'm 13 a little bit. And two, I sort of get back in that zone by looking at old diary entries, by looking at old pictures, by thinking about all those times. So I wrote this story in 6th grade called The Piano of the Past, which was based on this book, which is my favorite book of all time. Has anyone here read Tuck Everlasting? It's also a very old book, but the 50th anniversary is this September, and they're putting out a new edition. So, and has anyone watched Gilmore Girls here? Okay, so you know Alexis Bledel from Gilmore Girls? She was in the movie, and she's doing the narration for the audiobook. Just side note. So this is my favorite book of all time, and people say, how did you get started writing? And so much of where I am today is because of this book. Because in 6th grade, I read this book, totally changed my life, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute about how it got me to where I am today. But in this case, I wanted to show you this grading sheet for my project. I got a 91. Why am I sharing my grade with you? I think 91 is a good grade. But I lost points where it said, is the story clearly and logically told? And that is because still to this day, I'm not so great at plot. Plot is where I struggle the most. Everyone knows what plot is in a book, what happens. So that's the hardest part for me. The characters come easily to me, the dialogue comes easy to me. I could write a whole book of characters just sitting at an ice cream shop talking to each other. I don't know if that sounds interesting to anyone, probably not. You'd probably need a little more happening. But for me, what actually happens in the book is the hardest part, which is, I'm lucky because I have an editor, but it was interesting to me that in this story, that was where I lost points, is the story clearly and logically told. So anyway, here's a picture of my friends from 7th grade. Again, people say, how do you write books from the perspective of a middle schooler? It's also by looking at photos like this. I'm holding a clarinet reed. It's the end of the night after a band concert. You know that feeling when you're in your school at night and it's dark and it like looks really different than it does during the day? Everyone's had that experience with like band concerts, orchestra concerts. So I'm like back in that feeling. I have terrible bangs. I have a weird blazer on. But I'm back in that moment of what it feels like to be that age and be with those people. And the girl in yellow is Sunny in My Life in Pink and Green. Is a little bit based on her. So I wanted to talk to you. So that was a little bit of a backstory about how I got started. And people always say, why did you want to become a writer? And I'll tell you honestly, I've loved making stuff up since I was very little. Does anyone here like to just make up stories, like even daydreaming in your head? Yes. So all of you have the potential to become a published author because so much of it comes from just making up stories. I was very, very bored as a kid, and I would just make up stories in my head. And even still to this day, I'll be like daydreaming and thinking of random scenarios, even not related to my books. So making up stories is awesome. So this stage of the publishing process is called line editing, which I'll tell you that even in the 16 years I've been publishing books, it's really changed. At this point, I'm sitting here with like a stack of paper going through the manuscript line by line, but now a lot of it's done with track changes and things like that. So it's like we don't even use paper as much anymore in the process, which 16 years is a long time, but not that long, and it's interesting that the process has changed so much. So this is my favorite book, I told you that. And what happened was, when I was graduating college, I was looking for a job, and I was an English major, and I loved to make up stories. And I thought, what kind of job can I do? I wanted to work in children's publishing. And I wrote a letter to the publisher of Tuck Everlasting, which is in Union Square. And I said, this is my favorite book of all time. Please give me a job. Please hire me. And they brought me in for an interview, and I got the job. All because I wrote that this was my favorite book of all time, and I guess they thought the letter was interesting, and I got the job. And I worked there for 2.5 years doing all sorts of random things, like Xerox, copying manuscripts, sending original artwork back to authors and illustrators, which was very stressful because I was always scared it was going to get lost. I would read manuscripts and give feedback. I would read through all the submissions. When you work in a publishing company, all the submissions that they get, it's called slush, which it's like all submissions that don't come from an agent. And my job was to read through all of them and find the good manuscripts. All this to say, I liked the job, but my favorite part was working with the authors, and I thought, I want to be an author, right? This is all coming together now. I love making up stories. I love reading. I love writing. I'm going to become an author. And so I applied to the New School MFA program in writing for children. And you don't need to get an MFA if you want to become a writer, but it was great because I was in that community. I wrote a ton. I wrote 20 pages a week. How many people feel like that's a lot? I thought it was a lot. But I absolutely loved it. You learn to give critique. You learn to assess other people's writing. You read a lot. You write a lot. And this picture that I always share, I think is kind of funny because I'm giving critique on my classmates' writing in this moment. How many people here do that sort of peer review in class where you evaluate your... A lot. Okay. So who thinks that, raise your hand if you think it's easy to evaluate your classmates or friends' work. Who thinks it's easy? Not many people. Who thinks it's super hard? I think it's super hard because what can you do? You can't just say, oh, this was the best thing I've ever read. You can, which is nice, but if they want to make it better, that's not offering them that much to work with. You can't say this was terrible, I hated it, without giving a reason that wouldn't be very nice, and it's not giving them much to work with. And you have to learn how to give feedback that says, I'm not totally understanding why this character would do this, or this was confusing to me, or I don't think she should start out with this motivation. All these kinds of things that you need to learn how to give critique on someone else's writing, which I got to do in the New School, and I was in a writing group, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then at the end, I had this stack of paper, which I was like, okay, so I was in this program, and I spent 2 years there, and I did all this writing. I have a full book, but now what do I do, right? So there's a whole long process with publishing, and I can answer more questions about that after, but basically what happens is you try to find an agent, and an agent's job is to sell your book. Like an agent is like the coach of the sports team. They have to read everything you write, and their job is to find a home for your book. So if they don't think it's going to be successful, they're not going to take it. They're not going to want it because their whole job is to sell the book. They make money if you make money. So you have to find an agent who really believes in you, and not just in one book, but in like your whole career, who really wants to be by your side throughout the whole process. And they'll be brutally, brutally honest. Like I'm going to show you a picture of my agent in a minute. She also represents the book Wonder, if people read, and R.J. Palacio. So she will be so brutally honest that she will say to me, this was so boring. I just stopped reading it. I just started to go shop online. Like she will say things so harshly, but it's hurtful like, for a minute. But then you know that she has your best interest in mind, and she wants to make your books the best it can be. So also another part of being a writer is having a thick skin, and you can feel sad for a minute when someone doesn't like your book, and then you get back to work. So this stack of paper eventually became that book on that shelf. And it was so exciting to finally see it in bookstores. And when you have a book out and people go to bookstores, whether it's an independent bookstore or this was Borders, which doesn't exist, or Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, and people snap a picture of your book and send it to you, it is like the best feeling. So what happened was, this was my agent, Alyssa, who I was talking about. And she worked so hard to sell this book. We worked on 3 drafts of My Life in Pink and Green together before we even sent it to any editors. The whole process is that Alyssa will send it out to like a select group of editors, and an editor will say, either I love this and I want to publish this, as soon as possible. I don't like this at all, but thanks for sending it. Or I like it, but I would want some changes. Okay, so you want to get as many positive responses as possible, but it's also rejection is part of the process, and I got so many rejections for various reasons. And even though they try to make it so nice, still stings a little bit when you get that rejection note. And even to this day, I'll still get rejections if I'm looking for a new publisher. It's not like a guarantee that if you publish one book, you'll sell books forever. It's like you have to sort of keep working at it and keep going and not lose patience in trying. And so we worked on 3 drafts together before we even got to a publisher. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret that might not be so much of a secret, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think of it, but I do not like revising. Who likes revising here? Revising for school. You do? Some people do? That's amazing. Do you do a lot of revision in class? Or your teacher or your parent or somebody, tutor, will say you have to go back and fix this? Yeah? Sounds familiar? And what happens when you go to show this to a parent or your teacher and you're like, oh my goodness, I finished this. I'm so excited to show it to you. And then they say, oh, it's so good, but I think you should do this, 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 this. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Yes. Teachers sounds familiar to teachers? Right, because there's always more work to do. I mean, I don't even read my books after they're published because I could still find things to fix. And at that point, it's not that easy to fix something. You could make a tiny change. You could say, oh, there's a typo that we missed, but you really can't fix it after it's published. And you could always keep working on something, right? Like you could feel that it's never finished. So, but eventually you have to make peace with it and say, this is the best that it could be. So what happened was Alyssa sent out that stack of paper in an email and said, oh, this is Lisa Greenwald's first novel, My Life in Pink and Green. Read it, let us know what you think. And eventually Maggie, who's my first editor at Abrams, who also publishes Wimpy Kid, any Wimpy Kid fans here? Said, we want to publish this. And it was amazing. I was so happy. It was like the moment I've been waiting for. But the book was still not done. I still had an entire 7-page editorial letter of things to fix. And what happened was when I first got this letter, I would carry it around in my bag with me, and I live in New York City, so I was on the subway a lot. I would just like read the letter over and over and over again to try to process all the things that I had to fix. And in the beginning I cried, I'll admit, like there were some tears, because I sometimes cry when I'm overwhelmed. And I was like, I'm never gonna be able to do this. This is never gonna be published. Like I know they wanna publish it, but I'm never gonna be able to make all these changes. All this to say, I eventually stopped crying, eventually got to work, and the book came out. And the first line of a book is super important, especially to me when I first start writing. If I have a strong first line, I feel like it will anchor me throughout the entire writing process. And sometimes the first line is great, and other times I'll rewrite the first line like 20 times before I even continue writing because I just like have to get it right. So in My Life in Pink and Green, it says things could always be worse. That's the first line, and it anchored the whole book because it's advice. It's something her grandma said. It sounds kind of depressing, but it sort of just got me going and into the voice of this character. So I was done working on the manuscript on my own, and then it goes to copy editing, which is where they find all the simple, tiny mistakes that you would miss. Right? Like when you're writing quickly, you miss a lot of things. So one page I'll say a character has blue eyes, the next page I'll say she has green eyes. The copy editor will find that. The copy editor will find mistakes with spelling, with punctuation, with tenses. If you switch between present tense and past tense, that's the copy editor's job. So my job is pretty much done by then. So then it becomes like sort of the most fun part because I could just like enjoy all the hard work I've done, which is also super fun when they start working on the cover. So Chad, who was the art director, he sent this to me, and I thought, this looks great, right? Like, I thought this could actually be the cover. It was just a mock-up that he did. And then after that, they hired a model. She's like a real-life person, and they did a whole photo shoot. They put face mask on her. They painted her nails, cucumbers, and this whole thing was a photo shoot that eventually became the cover. So if you look back, I feel like this looked good at first, but then interesting how it compares to that. Do you think they look the same? No. Right? This is like a polished cover. And then they have the catalog, which promotes the book. And then eventually, I got to see my book in the bookstore. Again, my brother sent me this picture. Super exciting. So that is just the way to first get a book published, right? It's one book, and I was so thrilled. And then, of course, I wanted to publish more books. And I wanted to write a sequel of My Life in Pink and Green right away, but the publisher said no. And they thought, okay, Lucy's story is finished. We don't need a sequel. And a lot of it is that even if do you think the author is always in charge, right? Like the author can do what they want, but it's not true. There's a whole team of people that work together to put a book out. So you have to have the sales team weigh in, you have to have the marketing team weigh in, you have the editorial team weigh in, and they thought it was not time for a sequel of My Life in Pink and Green. So I wrote a bunch of other books in between, not a bunch, I wrote 2 other books in between, and then finally the sequel of My Life in Pink and Green came out. And then there was a third My Life in Pink and Green. But then I think when everything really changed in my career was when an editor came to me, a different editor, and she said, we have this idea for a book. Sometimes publishers will come up with an idea in the company, and then they find the author, so it can go both ways. It could be the author comes to the publisher with an idea, or the publisher comes to an author with an idea. And they said, we have this book idea for you. It's going to be a bucket list of 11 things these 2 girls, best friends, want to do before they turn 12. Would you want to write this? And do you ever have those moments where you just feel like the universe is really working for you? Everything's going great. We've all had those moments. You score 3 goals in a soccer game. You are really happy with a painting you've done, a poem, whatever it is. You feel so good. In this moment, I thought, this is exactly what I want to be doing right now. Okay, so this was not my idea. They came to me with this idea, but I loved it so much that the characters became my own. And I ended up writing 4 books when it was originally supposed to be 2. So this is the first list. And the books are from 2 different points of view. So in this book, the 2 characters are Ari and Kaylin. Has anyone read these, Friendship List? Okay. So one is from Kaylin's point of view, who people ask me all the time, who's Ari, who's Kaylin? I think that's Kaylin with the light blue, and Ari with the heart sunglasses, but people could decide for themselves. So in the first book, it's from Kaylin's point of view, and this is the list that they need to finish. In the second book, it's from Ari's point of view with the lollipop, and this is the list that they have to finish. And then the third book, which was super awesome, is the list is from people, from readers, all wrote in with different ideas. So they wrote in, what's the one with the unicycle? I can't find it. First one, hula hoop on a unicycle. That was someone's idea. Start a movement, be me, find a unicorn. I don't know what that meant. I had to figure out what that meant for me. So they all submitted ideas, which was amazing. Then, the moment we've all been waiting for, TBH books. I'll tell you a little bit how that got started. I used to be a school librarian, part-time, and there are these listservs that school librarians are on where they will sort of bounce ideas off of all librarians. Say like, a student wants a book about horses that takes place in Oklahoma in the 90s, and they also have 3 sisters, or whatever. They'll come up, they'll crowdsource the other librarians to come up with ideas and help readers find certain books, or if they can't remember a book. So anyway, one day I'm looking through the listserv, and a librarian posted and said, I need a book that is similar in format to this series called TTYL, which is very old now. Has anyone here read TTYL? It's really old. And it was written in instant message, which I don't think anyone here even knows what it was, but I do. The teachers do. But it was for like older teenagers. So they said, we need a book I want a book that's similar in format to TTYL, but with content that's appropriate for middle school. And this was literal light bulb moment in my brain. Everyone's had these moments where like you just have an amazing idea that you need to do right then. I was like, I have to write this. It has to be in text message because nobody does instant message on the computer anymore. It has to be in text message, and it has to be middle school kids. Because how many people have gotten into shenanigans with some kind of message? Whether on an iPhone, an iPad, right, a laptop. There's been shenanigans all the time. Group texts, someone said something they didn't mean. I don't know, hopefully you guys don't do this, but I have 2 kids and people are constantly kicking people out of chats. Does it sound familiar? Okay. So the phones and the texts are just a whole world unto themselves. And I thought, I've got to write this series. I have to write a series that's an alternate format for kids who want to read in a different way. We all love graphic novels. Raise your hand if you like graphic novels. Amazing. I cannot draw at all. It would be like terrible stick figures if I tried to draw. So I thought, I want to write something that's like a graphic novel, but not a graphic novel, that's an alternate format, but that's something that's on all of our minds all the time, which is phones, computers, texting, exactly. But do you think this was a slam dunk to sell? Do people think that this was easy to sell? It was not. Because publishers said, well, I don't know. We don't know if texting will still be popular in 5 years. What if no one's texting anymore? And I said, guys, I think texting is here to stay. They didn't believe me. They said, okay, So I got a bunch of rejections. I then had to rewrite it. I was going to give up. And my husband said, no, just finish the book. Let's just finish it. Let's see what happens. So then my HarperCollins editor, Maria, who came to me with Friendship List, wanted to buy it. But she said, you have to write 2 books a year because we literally don't know how long this is going to make any sense to people. They were totally convinced that soon people were not going to be texting. And this wasn't that long ago. This was like 2016. But they were just totally, publishers are a little cuckoo sometimes. And I said, fine, I'll write 2 books a year. It'll come out so fast, and we will publish these books. And I'm happy that you guys love them so much because I really, really believed that this series could be something special for people who like to read in a different way. We don't all like to read a gigantic, thick book with so many words. Some people do, but not everybody does. And so I'm so proud that even though this first book came out a while ago already, you guys are still reading it, kids are still reading it, it's still finding its way into libraries and bookstores and homes and everything like that. And I'm going to tell you a sneak peek. You guys are like only the second school that I've told this to, but it's not a secret, but it's a little bit of a secret now, is that the book I'm working on right now is half in text messages, half in regular narrative, like from a character's point of view. So look for that next year because I'm really excited to sort of merge the two. Okay, so that was a lot about TBH. You can ask me about more when we go for questions. Has anyone read Fortune Tellers yet? Amazing. So this came out last year, and a lot of it is about what happened around the pandemic. You guys were little when the pandemic started, but I had a 4th grader at the time, and I kept thinking, her whole world totally changed. We live in New York City. So many people moved away. She switched schools. The world after COVID for us is nothing like the world before COVID, just because of like living in a city. And I thought, what would happen if these 3 best friends had this gigantic fight? Then the pandemic happened. They all scattered. What would that be like? They're all in these new places on their own without their friends. There's a little bit of magical realism with the fortune tellers. Did anyone make these ever when they were little? Yeah. So I went through a phase where I was obsessed with them. My kids went through a phase where they were obsessed with them. And there's a little bit about what happens if the fortunes really come true or speak to the characters, and how will these fortune tellers bring these 3 friends back together. So that's the first one. The second one, which I wanted to play you a clip of the audiobook. Hold on, let me see. Okay, well, it's okay. You can find the clip of the audiobook. Who likes to listen to audiobooks here? Okay, so what happens is when an author is picking the actress or the voiceover person for the audiobook is that the publisher will send like 3 little clips from the voiceover actress, and I'll have to pick between them. Now, how many people have had an audiobook where they really find the voice kind of annoying? So that takes you out of the book, right? So I spend a lot of time listening to all the clips and deciding who's going to narrate the book. And then in Fortune Tellers, it's in 3rd person, which I normally never write in 3rd person. Does everyone know what 3rd person is? Yeah. So I usually write in 1st person present tense, which is like a character talking. Like I go shopping on Saturday and get totally lost and then end up getting a gigantic lemonade, right? That'd be 1st person. But then in 3rd person, it would be, Sarah went shopping. Sarah went shopping on Saturday. She was so frustrated. This is not a good sentence. And ended up getting lemonade at the end. So this book is 3rd person from all 3 characters' points of view. And it has many different voices, and it has siblings and everything like that. So the voiceover actress in this book kind of had to change her voice for the different characters. I covered so many things, but I also wanted to talk quickly so that I could answer any questions that anybody had, because I have a feeling you guys have a lot of questions. Do you have a lot of questions? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to stop there for now. I didn't talk about all of my different books, but you can ask me questions about the other ones or anything else at all that comes to your mind. I just want to always make sure I leave time for questions. Yes? Yeah.
So where'd you get the idea for the colors pink and green from your book, My Life in Pink and Green?
Awesome question. So My Life in Pink and Green has like an environmental theme to it. It's this character named Lucy who her family owns an independent pharmacy. Do you guys have an independent pharmacy in New Milford? Like a locally owned pharmacy? It's like such an obscure thing, but like my grandfather was a pharmacist, and I love a locally owned business, not like CVS or whatever. We all go to those stores, but I love a store that's owned. Anyway, so the business is failing, and she ends up starting an eco spa in the pharmacy, and she loves makeup. So the pink is for like the makeup and makeover she does, and the green is for the environment.
Oh, that's so cool.
Good question. Yeah.
Which book are you interacted the most?
Am I interacted with the most?
Yeah.
Do you mean like was hard to write or easy to write?
Easy to write.
Okay, so remember I said how I really wanted to do a sequel of My Life in Pink and Green? So when I finally got to do My Summer of Pink and Green, it was the best because I was so thrilled to finally be getting to do it. It's called My Summer of Pink and Green, and I love summer. Who's excited for summer here? Okay. Me. I love the beach. I love getting ice cream. I love lobster rolls. I love all the summer things. So when I wrote My Summer of Pink and Green, I got to write about summer, and I already knew the characters, and I got to write about going to the beach a lot, and so that was my favorite. Yeah.
Which book was like the hardest one to get ideas from writing?
Okay, so a book I didn't talk about in this presentation because there's just too much to cover, but it's called Absolutely Positively Natty. Has anyone read it? It kind of flew under the radar a little bit. It came out in 2023 or 2020, yeah. And it was really hard to write because it's the most depressing of all of my books. And I wanted to talk about what it's like when you're going through a hard time. And I'm sure everyone has heard this before. You're going through a hard time, and people are like saying things to you that don't really help, right? They're like, oh, just look on the bright side, or, every cloud has a silver lining, or, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, we've heard these things, right? Yeah? And they're all good and fine, but I wanted to write about what it's like when you're really going through a hard time and how important it is to just say, you know what, this is actually hard. I'm going to be okay, but I'm going through this right now. And that feeling of actually being able to sort of like feel your feelings and go through the things. Now, again, this might not be my most popular book because it's kind of depressing, but it's found its audience with certain people. But that was the hardest to write because I generally don't write super depressing books. And it was hard to make it somewhat fun. Yeah. Yeah. Who are the three? Okay, so there's three girls named Millie, Bee, and Nora, and they live in New York City. And what happens is they have this terrible, terrible fight, and it's because two of them get invited to this birthday party and one doesn't, and it all just explodes. And then the pandemic happens, and you guys remember you were little when the pandemic started, but everyone just like went home one day and didn't come back to school. And so it's about them and what happens to them. And they were best friends. Since kindergarten, they all lived within 2 blocks of each other. They walked to each other's homes. And then what happens to them when they are spread apart and split up. And I love thinking of character names, so I love their names. Yeah.
What was your hardest TBH book to write?
The hardest TBH? That's a good question. I think the last one. Because I think the last one gets read the least because it's the end. There are 8. So what happened was with TBH, it started out that I sold 4 of them because they thought we have to write them so fast. Because like I told you, they didn't think people were going to be texting anymore. And so I wrote them so fast with 4. And they ended up doing really well. People liked them. So then they ended up buying 2 more after that and then another 2 more for a total of 8. But by the time I got to 8, I didn't want it to end, but it had to end. And I wanted to send them off in a good way. So I think it's always hard to end a series to make sure that you're leaving your characters in a good place. Not where everything's totally wrapped up so neatly and everything's perfect, because that's not how life works. But you want to leave them like that they've gone through their journey and you send them off and they're good to go. Yes?
What is your least favorite book that you've ever read?
That I've ever read? Oh. The least favorite book I've ever read. I know I have this answer, but I can't think of it. Like a least favorite. I don't know. I'm stumped. Can I get your email and think about it? And send it to you? Okay. I'm very stumped. I'm really stumped, but yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'll get to you.
like how your books are always like, they're not like everything just ends like really happily. It's like I don't know, like perfect, but I like how they're actually kind of like realistic. I really like that detail.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me because I don't like to write things that don't feel real. Yes?
What book made you want to be a writer?
What book? Okay, so there's two answers to that. One is Tuck Everlasting, which I talked about in the presentation. But the other, and this is probably even more important because this is more in line with what I actually do write, was this series called Friends Forever. I don't know if any of the teachers have heard of these. They were in the Scholastic Book Club, not saying how old I am. And they were just about these 4 girls who lived in this town. They had sleepovers all the time. One moved away. Each one was called like Love Till the Kitchen Sinks, Love Till the Meatball Bounces, like these very funny titles. And you could only get them in the Scholastic Book Fair, book catalog. I don't even think they have that anymore. Do you still have the book? It was a fair, but not the order form. And I would order them, I would get them, they would be delivered to the school. I would come home that night, I would read the entire book in one night. I couldn't wait for the next one. And they've inspired everything I've ever written because it was really about girls going through regular life stuff with their families and their friends, and one moves away, and they're happy to be together, and they love each other, and nothing earth-shattering usually happens, but there's a little conflict, and I love them. I love them so much, I still have them on my shelf in my apartment. Yeah?
How long does it take you to write?
How long does it take to write a book?
Friendship list books.
So usually it takes me about 3 months to write a first draft. So the book I'm working on now, I started in March, and I just finished a first draft. But then it takes about a year to a year and a half after that for it to like be in a bookstore. Because it has so many things that it has to go through to then get to the bookstore. But I usually write a first draft really quickly, and I believe in this theory of bad first drafts because you just have to get everything down on the page and then you can go back and fix it later. So I don't ever expect the first draft to be perfect. Yeah?
What's your favorite book you ever read?
My favorite book I've ever read, well, I have a couple. Tuck Everlasting, which I showed you. And has anyone ever read the book Elsewhere here by Gabrielle Zevin? It's an amazing book, maybe when you're like, maybe wait till 7th grade. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing book. And when I first read it, it was a submission when I worked in publishing from the author's agent. And my colleague said, can you take this home tonight and read it and let me know what you think? And I was at a friend's apartment and I didn't even talk to my friends the whole night. I just read the whole book and I loved it. And it's still, I must have read it like at least 10 times. It's amazing. Who have I not gotten to yet? Yes?
What's your favorite book that you read?
My favorite book that I wrote, I would say, is my summer fiction read, just because it was so fun. But I love the TBH, and I love the book I'm working on now. I really, really love. The book that I'm working on now has been percolating in my brain for 2 years, and I'm finally finished a draft because I didn't sell it right away. Yeah.
What was the longest book you ever read?
The friendship list books are pretty long. A couple of you have read those, right? Those are pretty long. And I think certain people like that, and certain people don't want to read a big, thick book. Who likes to read like a giant, thick book here? They like that feeling. Okay, so yeah, I sometimes do too. When you have like a whole week in front of you, you don't have much to do, and you can like really sink your teeth into a book. I do like that. But then other times, I'm like, I'm not going to have time to really finish this, and then it has to be back at the library before I finished it. Then I'm like, I need a shorter book. But I think kids today tend to like shorter books. That's what people tell me. No?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
No.
Well, it's good. There's something for everyone. Yeah.
How long does one TBH?
Say that one more time. I didn't hear you.
How much time does one TBH?
Oh, how much time does one TBH book take? Those were very speedy. I would say I could finish a TBH draft in like a month and a half. Because it was... Well, let me ask you guys a question, since you're such big TBH fans. Do you guys think it would be hard to write that way? Raise your hand if you think it would be hard to write that way. Raise your hand, I think I know the answer. Raise your hand if you think it would be easy to write that way. Okay, so it was easy for me to write that way because I love to write dialogue. So it wasn't hard for me to do that. I would write every book in text if I could, because again, what I'm not as good at is the plot. And when you write in text message and you write in an alternate format, you still need a plot, but it's almost easier for me to convey it through dialogue. Yes?
Have you ever wanted to write a graphic novel?
I have, actually. I've thought about it, but I would need to get somebody to do the drawings. So I haven't gotten to it yet. We have a lot of good artists here.
No.
I'm jealous of anyone. You're a good artist? I'm jealous of anyone who's really good at drawing. I cannot draw. Who have I not gotten to? And then I can go to other people again. Yes.
What is the book you can most like? What is most like your life?
Ah, good question. The one that's most like my life. I think a lot of the characters in the books are the friends that I wished I had at that age. I have a lot of good friends now, but it took me a long time to like find my people. And so a lot of what I write are friendships that are almost like aspirational for what I wished I had had at that time. But that's not answering your question. I think the one that's most like my life is actually called Real Life Starring Us, which also flew under the radar a little bit. It's my third book. And it's about a girl who moves from Massachusetts to New York. Because in 6th grade, I moved from Connecticut, from Fairfield, Connecticut, not so far from here, but to Long Island. And it was like my whole world turned upside down. It was like a completely different community, completely different kids. Everyone was super mean. And it took me a long time to acclimate on Long Island. And so that book talks about that. But people, I don't know if anyone here has read Real Life Starring Us. It's a little bit more under the radar. Yeah?
How do you think of the titles?
That's a good question. The titles I'm not so good at. Like, for example, My Life in Pink and Green, I didn't think of on my own. Real Life Starring Us, I did think of on my own. TBH was originally, I thought it should be called Text Me, and then the publisher thought, I think we should call it TBH. Fortune Tellers, I came up on my own. And the new book, which I'm telling you about, the title is the first thing I thought of when writing it. The title is what, like, really made me feel like I have to write this. And it's because it's called Friend Group. How many people use those words, friend group? Like all the time, right? Like my kids say the word friend group so many times that my head could explode. And I thought, I have to write a book that talks about just that whole concept. Like every 5 minutes, my daughter who's in 6th grade, oh, she's not in this friend group anymore. Oh, she's in that friend group. Oh, she switched. Oh, she was kicked out. I don't love that this goes on, but I was like, I have to write something that's just called friend group. Is there anyone I haven't got to? Yes.
What's your most
I think it would be a tie between Friendship List books and TBH. And it's funny because they both came out around the same time. And sometimes books don't have like, they don't last forever, and those books are still, people are still reading them, which is so that is. Yes?
Which book did you like kind of give up on?
Which book did I give up on? There's a book that I never published. Actually, before I wrote My Life in Pink and Green, I wrote a whole other book that I never ever sold. Eventually, I thought, this isn't going to work out. But there's a happy part of that because so much of what was in that book ended up in other books. But it was about camp, and at the time, I could not sell it. Like, I must have gotten 40 rejections. Nobody wanted to buy this book. And that's when I said, I'm putting it away, and I'm going to write My Life in Pink and Green. Yeah.
How many books have you sold?
I have published 26 books, and then I have 3 more that are going to be coming out. So 29. They're in this series, this friend group series that I've just written the first one. Yeah.
What book is like selling, but like the least popular?
I feel bad for my girl Natty. I don't know if that one sells so well. I don't know. I try not to look at the ones that don't sell as well, but probably that one. Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to write like anything else? Like, what's your second favorite book genre?
If I had to write something else, I think I would want to write like creative nonfiction. Like I think I would want to write sort of like a memoir, a young adult memoir maybe. Because I took a memoir class in college and I loved it. And the thing with memoirs is it doesn't have to be 1,000%. Like you don't need to say like, on November 28th I wore a red shirt. Like you can embellish a little bit. I think it would be fun to write that. Yeah.
Did you ever like think of writing something like that's like not scary but not like very friendly?
I don't think I could do scary. I've done a teeny bit of magical realism. And I don't like to write something too sad. So I like to sort of stay in this area. Yeah.
Was it like before you write a book, do you like to know every step of it, like what's going to happen, or do you just go for it?
So that's such an interesting question because in my mind, I wish that I knew every step. And I always say, okay, for the next book, I'm going to write an outline. Spoiler alert, I never write an outline. Because I just am excited to dive in and I figure it out along the way. Like in Friend Group, for example, it didn't click into place for me until I was like 110 pages in. And then I thought, I just figured this whole book out. I wrote a short, brief outline, but I still kept finishing it. So now I'm going back to revise it and finishing from the beginning. Are we okay on time? I've
I was
lost.
gonna say maybe one or two more.
Okay, I could stay here with this.
I know they're
You guys
asking
are
great
amazing.
questions.
Yes, with the blue book.
What's your favorite type of book, like fantasy, science fiction?
I just love realistic fiction. I love reading about families, and I love reading about relationships between friends or moms and daughters. I don't love like over-the-top romance, but I don't like romance novels. But if there's a little bit of romance, I like it. I really like character-driven, real-life stories. Is there anyone I didn't get to? Yes.
Have you wrote any fantasy books?
I mean, I don't know. Would you consider like Fortune Tellers is more? Not really. Fortune Tellers is probably the closest I came to fantasy because it has a little bit of a magical touch with the Fortune Tellers.
Fifth graders are just wrapping up a fantasy.
Yeah, I admire anyone who can write fantasy. I think you guys all like fantasy, yeah?
Yes.
I admire anyone who can do it, but the thing is, you could probably tell when it's not good, right? You could read something that's, so I can't do it unless it's going to be good. Like, I don't think I can master that area. We have time for one more? If there's anyone we didn't get to, raise your hand if I haven't gotten to your question. Unless I've gotten to everyone. Okay, I'll take one more question.
I have a friendship list books. I've only seen it once, but it's like 13 and like 3/4.
Yeah.
Is that published?
It is. I should have put it in here. 13 3/4 was the last one, and it alternates from both Kaylin and Ari's point of view. And I love it. I feel very connected to those girls. But I want to tell you something. You guys have been an amazing, amazing, amazing audience. Your questions are awesome. And if I didn't get to it, I'm on my phone way too much, which you probably have guessed. So send me an email, and I'll write you back. And I always write back to everybody. My website is on any of the books, and your teachers and librarians, everyone has my website. And so you can always email me, and I promise to write you back.
And as we head into summer next week, our school ends. There's great opportunities to read some of your books over the summer.
I think they're good for summer reading because they're not too much.
Well, thank you so much. You
This
were
was awesome.
audience. Can we give this one
Yay!
live stream today? Can we
Thank
give them
you.
a round of applause.